While I put this bike together at superhuman speeds, I want to take a second to mention the company that I ordered this bike from. I ordered it online from a company called GovVelo, and they offer exclusive discounts to military, to first responders, and to government employees. And even if you're not one of those groups of people, they still have good pricing, generally below MSRP. So when I ordered this thing, I got free shipping on it. It showed up in just a couple of days. So if you are any of those groups that I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a no-brainer. You should really check these guys out. So now, onto the bike. This is a 2020 Marin Rift Zone 2, and how I settled on this exact bike is kind of a lengthy story. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I've been dealing with some back issues. It's something I've been dealing with for almost a year now, and I think it's finally time that I make the switch from my hardtail to a full suspension bike. I've previously done some research on some full suspension bikes, noticed the Marin Hawk Hill, and that's kind of positioned as their fun, do-it-all trail style bike, 27.5 wheels, which is what I've been riding since I've been riding. So that kind of made sense to me, and it just kind of seemed like a really great bike from reviews and everything. So I kind of always had that bike in the back of my head, you know, when I make the switch, that's gonna be the bike for me. Not too long ago, the opportunity came to sell my hardtail, went ahead and did that. In the interim, I borrowed a friend's bike to ride one day. It's actually like an extra bike he had. That was a nuke-proof Scout, and it was a 29er, and I had never ridden a 29er before. I always kind of thought like you would feel like you're on top of it instead of one with it. Like the wheels might be just too big and too hard to handle and just not very fun. But that wasn't the case at all. I actually really liked it a lot. It climbed fantastic, like little uphill rock guards and stuff like that. It would just eat those things up. So I really started considering 29ers at that point. So another thing I've noticed too is that within the industry, it seems like 29ers are making a more of a push lately. Especially a lot of models, you'll see that the wheel set sizes up with the bike frame. So you might have a small and medium that comes with a 27.5, then a large and extra large comes with a 29. So I do ride a large. Those couple things combined sort of just made it make sense for a 29er for me. So I already like the Marin. Obviously, I'm looking at 29ers now, and that's where the Rift Zone comes in. Over the past few years, the Rift Zone has kind of been marketed as a speed machine, a mile eater, that type of thing. Not so much a playful, fun bike. But for 2020, they've completely redesigned the frame. Now it has a slacker head angle. It's got 130 millimeters of travel in the front and 125 in the rear. So I'm liking the way that the geometry has been redone on this thing. So now, settled on the Rift Zone, and I'm thinking, okay, let's just go ahead and get the Rift Zone 1. It's the cheaper model. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be good. It'll be better than riding that hardtail I've been riding. Let me preface this also, too, by saying that I'm a person who appreciates cheap bikes, budget bikes, bikes that are affordable but still get the job done. And with all that said, I 100% see the value in going to the Rift Zone 2 versus the Rift Zone 1. And don't get me wrong, the Rift Zone 1 is still a great bike, but the price difference of $350 is more than made up for with the upgraded components that you get. So there are four main things that set this bike apart from the Rift Zone 1, and those are the tires, the drivetrain, the rear shock, and the seat post. So we'll start with the tires. These are Vee Tire Flow Snap, and they are quite chunky, quite aggressive, but the big thing with them is that they're tubeless ready. So what that means is all you need are some valve stems and some sealant. You can set these things up tubeless in no time. On the Rift Zone 1, you got Vee Tire Crown Gems. Not a bad tire at all, but they're wire beads, so you can't set them up tubeless. Next up is the drivetrain. This is a SRAM SX Eagle, and this is entry level into their Eagle drivetrains, and what that means is that it's a 12-speed drivetrain. So you've got a 50 tooth in the rear, which is honestly probably a little bit of overkill for the type of trails around here. I previously had a bike with an NX 1x11, had a 46 tooth in the rear, never felt like I needed another gear to downshift into. Compared to the Rift Zone 1, you're looking at a Shimano Dior on that one, and that's 1x10, but that still does have 11 to 46 in the rear. So to be honest with you, I would have been fine with the Shimano drivetrain on that Rift Zone 1, but it's nice to have this SX Eagle. So the next thing is this RockShox rear shock, and this is a Deluxe Select with Debonair sleeve, and just alone this shock retails for $400. Comparative to the X Fusion that's on the Rift Zone 1, it's like a $150 shock, and there is a quality difference there too. This shock does a really good job at smoothing out the kind of little chattery, bumpy things, all those things that'll just beat up on my lower back over time. That smooths those out a lot, which the X Fusion doesn't quite do as good of a job at. And the final thing that really sets this apart from the Rift Zone 1 is the seat post. This is a TranzX dropper seat post that comes already installed. I'm pretty sure on the large size it's 150 millimeters of travel, which is a pretty good amount. And you know, the Rift Zone 1 just has a standard seat post. So dropper seat post is one of those things that really does make a difference to your riding. Once you have one, I think it's just kind of impossible to go back. So those are the main differences between the Rift Zone 1 and the Rift Zone 2. There are also a lot of similarities as well. We'll start with the fork. It's a RockShox Recon. It has compression adjustment, it has rebound adjustment. Obviously it's an air fork, so you can get the right amount of air in it for your weight. It's a solid entry-level fork from RockShox. It's a good fork, it's what you should expect at this price point. The brakes are almost identical on both of them. They're both Shimano. The only real difference is that on this model you have 180 millimeter rotors on front and back. On the Rift Zone 1 you just have 160 in the rear. Minor difference, not anything to really be concerned about. The wheel set is the same on both. They're Marin branded. They are tubeless ready wheels on both of them, and I think they're 29 millimeter inner width. Handlebars, stem, you got nice wide handlebars on both of them. Nice short stem on both of them. So that about sums up everything on this bike. Stay tuned because there will be a full trail ride coming up, really putting this thing to the test on trails and seeing how these things really perform in real world situations. If you haven't already, think about subscribing to this channel. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. Like I said, stay tuned for that next video. One other thing I want to circle back to is, I mentioned at the start of this video that I got this bike from an online seller called GovVelo. And, I mentioned these guys are out there supporting the military and stuff like that. And, if you haven't lived it, I don't know that you can fully understand it. I'm not military. I can't really understand it. But we all know that those guys make a ton of sacrifices for this country and for our freedom. So it's nice to see a company like that stepping up to help them out. And just so we're 100% clear, they gave me a little bit of a discount on this bike. Nothing crazy. I'm not a spokesperson. They're not paying me to say this. I just think that what they're doing is a really good thing. So definitely check those guys out, especially if you're military, government employee. So that'll about wrap it up, and I'll see you again soon on the trail with this thing and really put it to the test.